Como ya os venía anunciando en otros vídeos, he entrevistado al director de Reinvest24 y aquí está la entrevista. Aquí podrás conocer más sobre la plataforma Reinvest24, cómo invertir en ella, cómo está funcionando y qué tipo de proyectos tiene. Además, si quieres empezar a invertir en Reinvest24, voy a dejar un link abajo en el que registrándote podrás conseguir 10 euros para invertir en la plataforma. Vamos a ver la entrevista.
Hi, Tanel. Nice to meet you again. Like we met last year, a bit more than a year ago, after the peer-to-peer conference in Estonia. It's nice to talk with you again.
Yeah, nice to see you again. I remember you visited our office with Alex.
Yes. So now I would like to tell my audience a bit more about what is Reinvest24. I understand that platform, your platform, Reinvest24, is kind of new for the Spanish audience, although they already heard, and I'm pretty sure that there's already quite a few investors from Spain and some other Spanish-speaking countries. But why don't you tell us from the beginning, like how did Reinvest24 start?
Yes, so it actually started quite a while ago. I believe it was back in 2015 when our CTO started to build the technical solutions of the platform. It was at that point it was more of like an experiment or just one man building the technical side of it. But until 2017. It was in the second part when the CTO met with the architect of the platform, met with a real estate agency here in Estonia, Tiina KVB, who was very interested to create a platform that crowdfunds rental projects. And they had all the experience and resources to operate, find those rental projects that are very profitable and also operate them. So the technical side and the real estate side met. And end of 2017, the company was registered. But the whole process still took around like half year to launch the Reinvest24. It happened in 2018 May, when the public launch was made.
Mm-hmm. Who are the owners of Reinvest24?
Currently, the structure is that Reinvest24, the platform, is 100% owned by Reinvest Holding, who is also owning all the SPVs. And the Reinvest Holding company, there are two owners, both have 50%. One of them is Joint Estate, who just recently bought out Tiina KVB. So Tiina KVB is not in the ownership structure anymore. It's a Joint Estate now. And the other owner is Ximios Balt, another company, pretty big company here in Baltics. They all specialize in finance, real estate, so it's very relative to what Reinvest24 is doing. It's registered in Estonia. It's an Estonian company and all the SPVs as well. Well, we've been trying to get some kind of license to add some credibility to our platform. But the thing is that financial inspection in Estonia only gives you a license when you need one. And current situation is that crowdfunding platforms don't need any licenses to work with. So it's a bit difficult at the moment to get any license, but we have some things in progress already. Some type of, I wouldn't say exactly that they're licenses, but like permits, activity permits that we are currently working on, and we're looking forward to overall crowdfunding regulations in Estonia, which are already work since the beginning of the year. Obviously, some of the it's coming from some of the platforms, some fraudulent platforms that were registered here in Estonia, that alarmed the financial inspection in Estonia, and ever since they've been working on regulating the whole crowdfunding market in Estonia. So we expect to see those regulations come in force maybe second part of next year.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So tell us, how did you get to be the CEO of Reinvest24? Like, where did you come from and why that happened? How that happened?
Yeah, so I was working more than 4 years in LHV investment bank before coming to Reinvest24. I knew the CTO, the architect of the platform, Kirill, from internship program that we both did when we went to the college. It's an internship program where college student can basically, it's a summer work in USA where we run our own independent companies to sell some educational content. We both went through that program, and the community that has done that is very tight in Estonia. So there are every year different events, alumni events, where both of us participated, and one of my friend who was together with me in USA back in 2012 in the summer for 4 months. He knew Kirill, he knew his business ideas about the Reinvest24, and he also knew that I have a financial background in LHV Bank, so he kind of introduced me to him. And after I think it was 2 meetings that we had where we went through all the things, they made an offer for me to become the CEO of the platform. And at the time I was working like more than 4 years already in LHV, and I kind of felt that I would like to try. I mean, the crowdfunding, I was investing in crowdfunding previously in some of especially real estate crowdfunding, and I really like the idea. I feel that crowdfunding makes the whole economy more efficient compared to what the banks are doing. So it took me some time, but I basically stopped my job in LHV and jumped over to Reinvest.
I understand. It must be not easy to jump from a well-known company to a company that is just nothing yet, right?
Yeah, it's just a startup, while the bank is pretty established already and you have like a safe job there. At the same time, I didn't feel that this is what I want to continue doing for the next 5 or 10 years in my life.
Makes sense.
So it's better to jump when you're still young, and then later on when you already have family and obligations and more people depending on you. So I was figuring that it's the right time to do that jump.
How long have you been already now in Reinvest24?
It's 2.5 years. So yeah, basically I started from the very beginning when the platform was launched. Actually it was in June 2018. So it was just a couple of weeks after the platform was launched. So basically from the very beginning.
Great. So tell us a bit, what is Reinvest24 different from other crowdlending, crowdfunding, peer-to-peer, B2B platforms?
Well, yeah, I would say that one of the main things that we have and the other platforms don't offer is rental real estate projects, where we give our investors the same benefits and security as owning just a part of that real estate. We feel that the risk different here. I mean, real estate crowdfunding can mean many different things. Rental properties and equity type of investments have the lowest risk, and it's not dependent on the market growth that much. I mean, it's sustainable throughout market cycles. even if we hit another housing crisis in some time in the future, it doesn't mean that the investments are defaulting. We have two different types of projects currently. One of them are the rental projects that I just mentioned, and we also have development loans, which are more familiar for P2B investors. With the development loans, one of the things that might be different from all the other platforms is we rather only work with big developers, which is kind of difficult as they usually have access to a cheaper money and they don't need to take loans with like 14-15% interest. But at the same time, there are some developing markets where they also operate, where it's a bit more difficult to access the cheaper money. And from there, we can offer also good, very attractive interest rates, while we feel that the risks aren't that high.
Mm-hmm. When we are talking about rental projects, they are which kind of rental? They are private rental, touristic rental, commercial?
We have had all the different types, basically. Residentials, we have had short-term rentals for tourists, we have office spaces, we even have land plots and some like a warehouse type of projects. So we try to cover all the different types. Obviously, it's a bit more difficult with residentials, and also the Airbnb apartments as operating just one property in one location, or having just like 20 properties all around the city. Operating them is just not very efficient. So we rather look to have a bigger bulk of apartments in the same building or very nearby location to make it easier to operate. But that will mean that the funding target to acquire all those apartments in one building, for example, the funding target is a bit too high currently for the size of investors we have on the platform. So we need to work towards that to be able to offer this type of properties more, as I can see that investors are very interested in residential apartments, but this is one of the aspects that has been stopping us.
Mm-hmm. And when I visited you like a year and a half ago, you were just having projects in Estonia, but I understand that now you have projects in other countries. Which other countries you have projects right now?
Yes, so currently we have projects in Estonia, Latvia, and Moldova. So there are 3 countries right now, and we've been working this year quite hard, putting quite a lot of efforts and focus on opening more markets. This process has actually been going on since 2018 when we started. But opening a new market requires a lot of research to identify the markets where we want to work, first of all, and where we could also find trustworthy partners who we are confident to work together with. So this process has been going on actually around 2 years already, and we're currently looking at 2 new markets that at least one of them will be open still this year. And it's actually something that I think your audience, Carmen, would like to see, as it's your area.
Okay, that's good to know. So we will know we will have a new country by the end of the year.
Yeah, we're pretty confident that we will be able to open a new market by the end of the year.
Great. So does Reinvest24 has skin in the game? Meaning, for people that maybe don't know, it's like Reinvest24 invest in their own projects.
Well, we have done this previously as funding some of the projects. As we were just starting out and growing. We wanted to speed up the funding speed, and we also were confident about these projects as we didn't have like a high volume of projects. We just had a couple of projects that time. So we were very confident about these properties, and we invested our own money into them as well. But currently we are rather looking to invest more into the platform. to build technical functionalities that are long waited, to do some marketing as well, to grow our user base so that properties get funded faster and the overall experience for for every user is a bit better thanks to that. So we're rather currently investing more into the platform than into our properties.
Could you explain us how the SPVs work in the platform? Because I think it's something that is not happening in other platforms. And could you explain, like in simple words, for investors to know how they work and how this is good for investors?
Okay, yeah, sure. So if we were to acquire all the properties through Reinvest24, then we will basically be a rate up type of fund, which will mean that all the properties would be dependent each other. Let's say something happens with one property, it will also drag the other properties into that issue. Now, how we can keep all the properties financially dependent from each other is that we have a separate company registered for just one purpose, to acquire that property and to stay operating it and just pay out all the income that it makes. So SPV basically means is a separate legal entity that has just the purpose to purchase the property and operate it for the rental income.
So I guess we arrived to the topic of the day, of the year. How is COVID-19 affecting to the real estate market in the countries you are working, and how is affecting to the platform?
So the COVID has been like the main topic of the year, definitely. If we look at how, all the sectors got hit by the COVID, but I would say that the real estate was the one that had the least impact and had the fastest recovery as well. Well, obviously the stock markets also recovered quite fast, while the governments the central banks are printing a lot of funds and trying to build more confidence into the stock market investors. But in Estonia, I have a very good overview. We were analyzing the whole situation very closely. In March, April, obviously the activities on the market slowed down a lot. Basically, for some periods, stopped totally. There were no transactions on the market. Who really wanted to sell, who really needed to sell, they needed to lower the price around like 10 to 20% to get to that actual deal. But in May, we also already saw recovery, and the recovery has been actually a lot faster than we expected. In September, in Estonia, we had the highest volume of real estate transaction in 2020. So the September, we had more than in January or February before the COVID happened. And the price levels are actually back at the same level as well. So it was very short period effect that the real estate market here in Estonia got hit. With our properties that we have on the platform, there were two properties that had an issues, and one of them is the restaurant property that we have in Kadriorg. As the lockdown, for the lockdown period, the restaurant was closed. They could do home deliveries at some point, but for about a month they were totally closed. So we were communicating with them and making we basically postponed some part of the rental payments for April and May for the second part of the year, which means that in the year time it didn't really affect the income of our investors in that project. And we had the Airbnb short-term rental project where we had a service provider who was operating the property. We had two units. Basically, the lockdown made the service provider to cease the operations, and for some period that rental property did not make any payouts. But as of today, we've been able to sell those 2 units and provide a pretty nice income to capital growth income to our investors to compensate the no income period. So yeah, overall everything else has been going quite well.
Sounds good. So what are the future plans for Reinvest24?
Well, we will keep looking to open new markets, as we want to offer more diversification options on different regions to our investors. We also want to keep improving our platform technical side to add some more functionalities. For example, the secondary market is long waited. Then there is the auto investor functions. We're looking to build an app in the future to give a faster overview of portfolio that the investor had on the platform, and so on. There's just the development of the platform seems to be like never completed. The more we do, the more things we have in the pipeline we want to do more. So we keep working on that, and obviously we need to grow our user base as well to fund those bigger projects, so which can be a lot more profitable and are more efficient to operate.
Reinvest24 is probably the only platform that charges commission for investing to the investors. Why is that?
Yeah, well, the thing is that we started out with just rental projects. And with the rental projects, we don't have loan originators, we don't have borrowers who we can charge the fee. So the question will come like, will the platform, where does the platform make its income? The platform needs to be profitable as well for everything to work out. So we need to have a fee there. Otherwise, we're basically doing it for free. Or I think worst option would be to just include some additional funding to each property and just, not being transparent about what the actual fees are. I think it's better way to give the fee that we take. It's transparent and it's overall a better way. But I can see that investors are rather seeing it a bit differently. But the platform needs to make money as well. Otherwise, you should start to question how is this business sustainable, or what's the motive for the platform owners to do this kind of platform. I think the recent events with some of the fraudulent platforms should alarm investors on that topic, and everyone should think about how some platform can offer you like 5% affiliate commissions, not taking any fees from anyone, spending a lot into the marketing and so on. So it's a business. It needs to be profitable. Otherwise, you should start asking like how or why this platform is operating at all.
Mm-hmm. And when we will see Reinvest24 in Spanish language?
Yeah, this is actually in work. We just published our first few blog articles that are translated now to Spanish language. We will translate the whole website translations are already ready, just not the property translations. And this is also in work. We want to get this done also within this year. So by the end of the year, we will have Spanish, German, English, Russian, and Estonian, our platform and in our blog as well.
That's great news for us. And a lot of my audience, they are Spanish speakers, but they don't live in the European Union. And I know some platforms, they have some requirements, and it's sometimes difficult to invest if you are not from the European Union or you don't have the residency here in some platforms. So what are the requirements to invest in Reinvest24?
Yeah, we've been discussing this topic quite a lot with our lawyers, with the law firm that made the legal structure for us. And we don't actually have any restrictions currently to invest from other countries outside of Europe. Just as a private person, you will be able to do so. Just in many cases not through company, which is pretty much common in Europe to use a legal entity to invest through that. So if you want to sign up as a private person, you can do so. We might request some more documents from your side. Passport will be required instead of ID card or driver's license, and you can use TransferWise or some alternative payment system to also save some money on the fees, transaction fees, as well as the conversion fees if your currency is not euros. So yeah, we welcome investors from other areas outside of Europe as well. But the requirements are a bit more tight, so we might contact you and ask you some additional documents or information.
Okay, that makes sense. So before we finish the interview, could you tell us a bit about the numbers, of more or less the numbers, how many investors you have, and what is the interest rate that we can get average in the projects that we can invest in Reinvest24?
Yeah, so we currently have more than 6,500 investors on the platform. The number is actually getting close to 7,000 now. So it's growing quite in a fast pace. The average yield, while our rental projects are providing you rental income, you don't really see the capital growth until the property is exited. So I would say, based on our exited projects, where we have the rental income and the capital growth, as well as our development projects which are exited, the average income is more than 14.6.
That's good one. Okay, so I think with that, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Well, I would just like to point out that if we look at the average yield that our projects have been producing, more than 14.6% per year, then you don't actually get much more from consumer lendings or some more riskier type of investments. With the real estate, you have the collateral, so no matter how bad the times get, the real estate still has value, and it doesn't, if let's say we have COVID wave 2, many loan originators will have some difficulties with the real estate investments. You still have real estate, it's still valuable. That if it defaults, it just might take time a bit to recover your funds, but your funds are not lost. So please look at the risk factors and don't only look at the interest rates. Try to understand also what the risks are, what will happen in the worst case scenario. Will you lose your funds, or will you be able to recover them? Or how likely it is to recover your funds in the worst case scenario.
That's a good advice for all the investors. So thank you very much, Tanel. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you, Carmen. It's always interesting to chat with you on these topics.
Si te ha gustado la entrevista y quieres empezar a invertir en Reinvest24, abajo voy a dejar un link en el que te puedes registrar y conseguirás 10 euros para invertir en la plataforma. Si te ha gustado, dale un me gusta y déjame un comentario con qué otras plataformas te gustaría que entrevistase.